Welcome to Up Close. My name is Professor Donald Jones, and this is a social justice program. Today we're dealing with the general theme of diversity, and more specifically, the problems and issues that people of color face as they attempt to make the journey from economic disadvantage to success. What paths do they choose? How do they overcome the barriers in their paths? Now, when we talk about diversity, typically, in the past, we've talked about the problems of black people, but blacks are not a monolith. We are people from America, from Jamaica, from the continent, and from places in the Caribbean. And the journey matters, and we want to know not merely what is the journey for black Americans, but what is the journey for other people in the black diaspora, particularly those who hail from the Caribbean. So today, we have with us a lawyer, author, and friend, attorney Irvin Daphnis, and we're going to find out about his journey. And I want to put this in as well. In order to succeed, you have to have a plan. You have to have a strategy. But I would argue you also have to have a dream. And so we're going to ask him not only about his journey, but about his dreams. Welcome, Irvin Daphnis.
I'm
delighted
to be here. Professor Jones, thank you.
Tell us where you were born.
I was born in Queens, New York.
Okay.
Laurelton, Queens.
Nas comes from Queens.
King's from Queens.
Okay, Queensbridge.
Yes, sir.
So tell us about your growing up. What are the challenges you face? What are the advantages, the disadvantages you had growing up as a Haitian American in Queens? You're second generation.
I am a first generation American.
Okay.
I think for me, growing up in Queens was the highlight of my life.
Yes.
We lived in a very diverse community.
Yes.
I went to PS 132, Ralph Bunche Elementary.
Yes.
Ralph Bunche was one of the first African Americans to win the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes.
And so, my background in terms of growing up in Queens was school. We played out in the streets, stickball, skelly. We played handball, Chinese handball at PS 132. And so it was a wonderful growing up background. Church, home, school, that really created a great foundation, I think, for me, and fond memories.
It sounds like an American story. But when I was growing up, I grew up in a working class neighborhood in Baltimore, East Baltimore, on Lafayette Avenue. There was a tree outside my window. The houses were brownstone. They had white steps. You could just see for miles this cascade of white steps. And so, but it wasn't all just sunshine. And when I went to school, I remember going to junior high school, there were gangs that were located on either side of the street. No matter which side of the street you went down, you had to walk past a gang. And each one wanted you to wear their paraphernalia. And so sometimes there were long walks home. And, the only Providence was with me as I walked home.
Amen.
And because there were lots of things to keep you from being able to get home.
Sure.
So I'm just wondering, how was that in Queens? Was it?
To be honest with you, whether we were ignorant may have played a role in it, but
Yes.
there wasn't really a lot of crime where I grew up in Laurelton.
Yes.
Mom let us go freely. We walked to school.
Yes.
It was a different time,
Yes.
I remember, nowadays you have speed bumps that slow down traffic.
Right.
We basically controlled that block at 5, 6 years old, playing in the street. The manhole cover was home base. We had brooms as the bats, and we used tennis balls or whatever balls we could find, as our baseballs.
Okay, that all sounds just like what I'll call an immigrant story. But you went on from those beginnings to become a lawyer. Tell us
Yes,
about
sir.
that.
Ever since I could remember, I wanted to be an attorney at law.
Yes.
Wonderful counselor,
Yes.
Esquire.
Right.
I can remember it as if it were yesterday. Watching Walter Cronkite on the CBS Evening News.
But was it a challenge? Was it easy, hard?
It definitely was a challenge, but because I believed in my dream, I think I persevered through all the challenges that I had. And watching that was what gave me the initial idea of wanting to be a lawyer, because I'm watching a protest happen.
Yes.
And I'm asking my dad, well, Dad, why are these people so mad? And he said, well, they're protesting because of unfair job conditions. And then some man, well-dressed man, comes on the scene and starts to speak about how they are being dealt with unfair living conditions.
He was able to articulate
the problem, and more importantly, the
and
solution.
frame the issue. And
Right.
frame the issue.
Disparate treatment, and how they were being discriminated against intentionally in the workplace.
So you witnessed leadership.
I witnessed leadership, and I knew at that moment that's what I wanted to be.
Because you wanted to be a leader as well.
That's correct.
But so, and you mentioned dreams. It's Langston Hughes who says, hold fast to dreams, because without dreams, life becomes a broken winged word that cannot fly. And when many people talk about entrepreneurship or being a leader or being a lawyer, they'll talk about you need a plan, you need a strategy. And I know we need those things, but I would think we also need a dream.
Absolutely.
And they played a role. And what was your dream?
I wanted to be not just a lawyer,
Yes.
right? I wanted to be influential. As
Yes.
Dean Charles Hamilton Houston said, a lawyer is either
A parasite.
or he's either a social engineer,
Yes.
or a parasite on society.
Yes.
Right? So I knew that, like that lawyer who wanted to make a difference for those people's lives and bring about a sense of justice, a sense of that you can't discriminate on because
So it
of
wasn't
person's
just about
color.
the BMW. JD, many people says, equals BMW. So it wasn't just about the bling or the material aspects of success.
Absolutely.
It was about justice as well.
Absolutely. Now we've talked about this, before ad nauseum in terms of Of course, we want to be in a certain position where we can pay our loans, right?
Right.
And pay the bills. But there's more to it than that. It's about trying to help others and try to change our society, and doing good. And of course, that theme of justice continues to rear its lovely head in terms of making it a better world for other people.
When I started UM, I was the only black professor there for probably 15 years, and there was certain. It was an honor, but it was also a certain dimension of being almost like a pioneer, and so I was facing barriers that were unique to my situation. You know, I still remember coming to Miami. People didn't expect me to live certain places. When I moved into my house a few years ago where I live now, the police came to my door to ask me to show them my license to prove that I hadn't broken into the house. So, and this wasn't that long ago. So race is a reality in American life. And so did you face barriers related to being black? Did you face barriers related to being Haitian, both, neither? Help us to understand what your journey was.
All the above.
Yes.
Coming to Miami, we came to Miami when I was probably 6 or 7, 8 years old.
Yes.
It was a culture shock, because there seemed to be, and I think things have gotten better and progressed, but back then there was a lot of clashing, not only based on race but of national origin, right?
Yes.
And so those were things that we had to go through and develop a modicum of respect.
When you say
right?
problems, were they just whites or were there also blacks?
It was all the above, again. And I think
Stereotypes.
Absolutely. And I think what happened is, through just living and communicating and fighting. I mean, you have to fight for respect. My dad used to always say, survive, but survive with dignity. He was always about dignity and integrity, And so I think that it's important for us to recognize that there was a time that there was misunderstandings in our community. But now I think things have changed drastically.
There are more bridges, more
Absolutely.
pathways to.
Absolutely.
Let me see if I can express my concerns this way. Years ago, we have conferences and we would talk about the problems of race and immigration. And many of the conferences were centered around the problem of the border. And at one point when I wrote my most recent book, I tried to figure, well, what is the border? And so what many people think of when they think of a border is they think of a imaginary geographical line that separates between states or between countries. Mm-hmm. And that's one meaning of the border. But there's another meaning of the border. The border can be understood as a cultural frame in which some people say, well, I'm us, or we're us, and those are them.
Right.
It's the border can be something in a person's mind that says this person is an American, this person is a foreigner. And Henry Louis Gates writes about how when blacks came to this country, their problem wasn't merely that they were black, but they were considered foreign. They were part of a culture that they didn't understand. And so, did you, even after you grew up as a citizen of the United States, did you confront a border? Did you confront in other people a sense that they were the ends and you were not?
It's the other, right?
Yes.
It's what we talk about in terms of discrimination from when I'm seeing it since I was young. I remember walking down Caribbean Boulevard with my dad.
Yes.
And we were going for a walk, Caribbean Boulevard in Cutler Ridge. I must have been 8 or 9 years old. And then, cans were thrown at us. Cans were thrown. It was like, hey! And my dad just kept walking. Right. We are more, they say, I'm not this is not your daddy's civil rights movement, right?
Right.
I don't know what that means, but I think what it means is we are more prone to face discrimination and speak up.
Right.
The microaggressions that may take place at the job place,
yes.
We're more prone to be more diplomatic and talk about it, right? Mm-hmm. We're a little bit more diplomatic when we do it, and some may not be. But, when you're thinking of navigating through the corporate structure and being able to be, for example, there's only less than 5% of African American attorneys in these United States.
Right.
And so, that gives you a particular amount of leadership, example, a lot more on your shoulders than the average lawyer really has to perhaps worry about.
Right.
But again, Langston Hughes, to quote the idea of the dream.
Yes.
Langston Hughes also said, what happens to a dream deferred?
Does it stink like rotten meat?
Does it stink like rotten meat? Before he said that, he said, what happens to a dream deferred?
Yes.
Does it stink like rotten meat? Does it, maybe it sags like a heavy load? Or does it explode?
Does it shrink like a raisin in the sun?
Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun?
Or does it explode?
And that explosion can be two ways.
Yes.
For me, the explosion is of a betterment. We were talking about transforming society.
Yes.
And being able to transfer the anger that you might have about microaggression into a teachable moment.
Okay.
Into a moment where people realize that this is not supposed to be happening. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because we definitely need a transmutation to take place in our society. And it's an ongoing struggle.
Right.
It's an ongoing struggle. It never stops. Because once we have permanent Santan people have that reality. Mm-hmm, and it's not as if we are experiencing more instances of aggression, mm-hmm. whether physically or microaggression. It's that nowadays it's getting filmed. Mm-hmm. Now mm-hmm. we're able to see it through social media.
Yes.
All right? And so that's the change that's taking place. I read this meme. Even some white people are upset about white people's behavior as it relates to discrimination and racism. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I was in Richmond, Virginia, of all places.
So you're saying America is more woke?
It's a very dangerous word, I guess you could say in these Florida, right?
Right.
Some people don't want to say. Woke is an idea of being conscious.
That was the original iteration. Black people created this word woke. And I still remember there was a show, what was it called, where people would sing American Idol or something. And much of what was happening was appropriation. They were taking black songs and people who weren't from the same culture were singing them. But that's all right. And I'm not offended by that. But I think that the wokeness was, in my view, an appropriation. They were taking, now it meant something to us, I think a little different from what it means as it has been commercialized.
Exactly.
So we've commercialized wokeness.
Right.
Wokeness means that there's certain things you can say on the internet that allow you to signal virtue. And
Right.
corporations can be woke because they hire a certain group of people.
Diversity.
And they put them out front.
Right.
Now, of course, the reality is that to be really woke, we've got to dig down deep. And
Show me the receipts.
Yeah,
of
right.
diversity.
Right. And you have to do deep introspection.
That's correct.
And I think that's what we still have yet to do, to
Right.
go deep into some of the things that are wrong.
Right. And so when we talk about being awake
Yes.
or woke, it's
Right.
still living the dream awake, right?
Right.
This idea of Thoreau says, there's no better category to be than to be living your dreams awake. So for me, what happens to a dream deferred? I went through pitfalls. I tell people all the time, I got kicked out of law school, but what do they call me today? And I got kicked out of law school because I was woke in a sense, and I didn't have the tools at the time necessary as a first generation lawyer, law student,
Right.
and first generation American to have the proper mentorship to be able to get around that. But
So you're
again,
saying that in your legal career you had a bump in the road.
a bump in the road, a pitfall, pit stop. But what do they always say? Fall 6 times, get up 7. Failure is when you don't get up.
Now, there was a great lawyer I talked to. His name was Willie Gary. And I used to work for Willie. Great trial lawyer, one of the greatest trial lawyers of his generation. Still a great lawyer. And I still remember I asked him what message did he have for those who wanted to succeed. And he says, well, look, life is going to knock you down, no matter who you are. And the question is not whether you get knocked down. The question is whether you'll be able to get back up.
Standing from the inside is what I call it. Right?
Okay.
Something within me that banishes pain. It's something within us that sometimes we can't even explain. But with that something within us, I say persistence beats resistance. Persistence trumps resistance. And that's what I want to share with law students now. And lawyers even. We
Right.
had one of my mentors, Irvin Gonzalez, my namesake.
Yes.
He was the lawyer's lawyer.
Yes.
I'd pick up the phone. He'd never.
A Miami lawyer.
Miami lawyer, barred, certified. He taught other attorneys trial law.
Yes.
Committed suicide.
I'm so sorry.
Former Miss America, African American young lady working at a big law firm. She was Miss America. Jumped out of the window of a 20, 30, 50-story building. It's the pressures that a lot of people don't know, the microaggressions that a lot of people may not know that exists in our profession, right? Mm-hmm. It's the other side. But when we pierce that corporate veil, we understand that a lot of lawyers are not happy, working 60, 70, 80 hours, the billable hours. And so there must be a conversation that takes place, whether it's through the voluntary bar associations, the Florida Bar, the National Bar Association, where we allow ourselves to start self-care and think about mental health as a very important and honest thing that lawyers, because we don't see lawyers and or law students who are like A-rated, that they have problems. But
Right.
substance abuse, unhappiness, it runs rampant in our profession because we have to hold and really go to sleep with a lot of people's problems.
There was an educational philosopher, I don't know whether it's a sociologist or philosopher, who argued that black people face stereotype threat. And that much of, when you look at, for the LSAT, for example, blacks don't do as well as whites. And there are many other areas in which you'll see a gap in achievement. And so he argued that a major factor was that blacks faced the threat of being stereotyped and this consciousness of always being under the microscope. Did you feel as a black lawyer, as a Haitian lawyer, that you were under a microscope, that you were like had to be twice as good?
Absolutely.
Twice
I mean,
as sharp.
that's since day one. I mean, since I was -1, that's been that reality. I can tell you a story. I walked into court one day.
Yes.
And as I'm going to court, right before passing what we call the proverbial bar, right?
Right.
Bailiff comes out. Sir, you're supposed to sit over here. I am dressed to the nines. I mean, I'm dressed to the nines. I try to do that because,
Yes.
again, you have to be a leader, and fashion speaks louder than words.
Yes.
And so it didn't speak loud to him. He must have been a little bit either impaired.
You belong in a
visually.
certain place in
I
his
am
mind.
supposed to be sitting in the well. If not, I'm supposed to be sitting where the prisoners are, right? And I could remember one of my friends, top-notch attorney
Right.
friend, and he just was embarrassed. He was embarrassed by what was happening. And I said, sir, I'm a bar-certified attorney. I had to
Right.
show him my bar card, right, to be able to go through the bar. And so those are realistic issues that we face as attorneys, okay? I can remember a judge saying, well, we don't do that over here on this west side. I mean, I was representing a young lady who had relative possession charges. Usually you let the person go. He didn't want to give her bond. And she felt like maybe it was because of my permanent suntan,
Okay. But it's interesting, too. I mean, there are many levels at which identity, race, ethnicity operate. And one level is that if this is something a Supreme Court justice said, and people say that Clarence Thomas is, people have a negative image of Clarence Thomas, but even a stop clock is right twice a day. And what Clarence Thomas said was that if you're black, you never have as many contacts, the quality of your contact. And he went to Yale. He says your quality contacts are never as good as those who are white. And so we often start as a disadvantage. We don't start in the finish line. We start 10 yards behind, maybe 50 yards behind.
And that's so incredibly deep because your network, especially in this business, it creates your net worth.
Yes.
I mean, being able to know people in this business, will make you or it will break you.
Yes.
So that idea he was right at that point.
That's right. But another thing, too, I find interesting is that, unless you work for an institutional, like work for a university, work for a hospital, you work for government, unless you work for that, or unless you're one of those lucky people who work for the major firms, the Greenberg Trorigs, the Holiday Knight, most of the black lawyers who are in private practice have very small firms.
Very true. My dad used to say that. However, I look at it in two ways.
Yes.
Because I've been able to do both, right?
Yes.
I run my own law firm.
Yes.
And I know the trials and tribulations that come with that. I'm presently working with a medium-sized boutique firm, and we're doing personal injury, catastrophic injury. Shout out to Unity Arte Law, okay? Because they pay my bills, so. But that was as a result of a connection from church.
Okay.
Okay? And we've known each other. My boss and I have known each other from church.
Yes.
And, it just happened that I wanted to do something different. But, yeah, it takes capital, right? Especially when you're first generation.
The aggregation of capital.
You need money. Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money.
Okay.
Dollar bills, y'all. I mean, we were taught what? The love of money is the root of all evil.
Right.
Okay. Well, tell the FPNL that.
Money itself is not evil.
No, it's not.
But
there's another Bible verse
did you
that
have
says,
did you have to take risks?
Well, you have to get loans to even go to law school. That's a risk, right?
Yes.
It's a risk. But guess what? I'd rather invest in myself, right? And I did. And now it's paying off, Okay? Now it's paying off.
Was it a major investment, the money, or was it the time?
I think
was it the sacrifice?
I think it's all the above, because time is money, right? And even when I didn't have money, right, I have the time to make the money. But making money is not just about being able to drive a McLaurin, right? And there's nothing wrong with doing that.
It's about the freedom and the option.
It's about the freedom and being independent. Do you know what that means?
And so now you're able to command. Now you're able to command attention from other firms. They want to hire you because of the skills that you've amassed. You're being sought after. And let me just ask this question: have you are now bi-national? You are.
I'm a polyglot.
You are working in the Virgin Islands, and you're working here, and you're able to. So you're able to conduct business from two geographically
Thank
diverse.
God for Zoom, right? I mean, yes.
You're living in the Virgin Islands.
Well, I was living in the Virgin Islands
Yes.
till my boss pulled Elon Musk on us. He said, you got to come back, which has been great because it's allowed me to, because when you remember you called me, I was in the Virgin Islands. I couldn't do the show.
Okay.
So here I am.
Okay.
And I'm also able to come back to the community and
You're
network
jet setting
with my judicial friends, which, by the way, I want some of the judges to come by on your show.
Say hello to my friends on the bench.
Absolutely.
But let me just ask this question too. You know, many times we think of ourselves as people of color as being the center of the universe. So black people see ourselves as center. But I'm just wondering, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as a black man? Do you see yourself as a Haitian? Both? How do you see yourself? As a black lawyer, Haitian lawyer, both?
I see myself as both. I see myself as an American. I see myself as a Haitian African American. I mean, you know, you can say what you want to, but when your lips are closed, how do people see you?
Okay.
The police officer doesn't see me as anything different than any other.
So blackness is like part of your objective identity.
Afro.
It's how you're perceived.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a worldwide blessing. In my case, I'm proud to be black. You know.
Okay.
I love it. I love the experience. I remember reading this meme. It says, "Being black is dangerous, but it's lit." Anywhere I go around the world, I love it because there is this. It's like Creole or Haitian food.
Yes.
It's Creole. This jumbo, this
Yes.
jambalaya. You know, and especially the fact that I can speak French, I speak Creole, Haitian.
Tu parles
Creole.
français.
Je parle français très bien. Hein? And then living in Miami, with our Cuban brothers and sisters, ya habla mucho.
Yes.
No, ya habla pico, un poquito. But it's a beautiful thing that we live in an international community, and to be able to learn from each other. To me, there's nothing better than that. That's living the dream.
And part of your dream was not just being a lawyer, but being able to write. And so one of the things you've done is you have produced a book. Can you tell us about your book?
100 Days of Real Motivation. It's out. Pre-order your book. This is an inspirational book, meditational book, and it was based off when my parents and I used to do meditation and worship at home. And it's one of many in a series of 100 Days in Real Motivation. Like Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Yes.
But this is 100 Days of Real Motivation for your soul. Pre-order your copy. We'll have that link drop. Make sure that you get this book.
So, in Haiti, when I meet my friends from Haiti, I often say, "Sac passe."
Naboulé.
And so when you say "naboulé," that means it's burning.
It literally means, the transliteration is, we're burning, meaning we're hot. We're on fire.
And part of that fire has gone into this book.
Man, listen, I wrote this book 8 years ago. So when we talk about a dream, what happens to a dream deferred?
Yeah.
And now my dream is coming true. And the dream just to be here with you. It's a humbling, wonderful,
My brother.
amazing. My visions are coming true, and you got to be careful what you wish for.
Well, last thing I want to say is that I think that our lives, our success is powered by our dreams. So if you want to be successful, You've got to have a dream. And the final thing I want to say is this. I think that whatever your dreams are, I think that your dreams and my dreams, whether black or white, are always the same. They're human dreams. Dreams about how do we do something with nothing.
That's correct.
How do we do that?
That's correct.
And I think much of it is just deciding within yourself.
Absolutely.
This is what I'm going to do.
I think you read my book already.
Listen, so it's an honor and a pleasure to be with Irvin Daphnis, a lawyer, author, someone who has been able to translate his dreams into real success. So you've been watching up close. This is my effort to say to all of us that whether you're an educator, whether you're a student, whether you're a lawyer, that we need to try to understand each other's journeys. And the better we understand each other's journeys, the more we'll be able, we need each other to succeed.
Communication bridges the gap. And if we stay silent, Zora Neale Hurston says, about our pain, they'll kill you and say that you enjoyed it. So
God bless you for that. God bless you. Thank you. Welcome to Up Close. Thank you for
Pleasure.
letting me share this moment of conversation.
The pleasure is mine.
It's like a cup of coffee for the soul.
It's my dream coming true. It's one of the days of motivation. You know, motivation is like hygiene. You need it every day.
There you go. God bless you, man.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you for blessing this show.
Thank you for blessing me to have me on your show.
So God
appreciate
bless.
you.
God bless. Thank you so